Okay, so what I'm going to do now is kind of work on the wings. Let me find a side view here. This front view might work well. And let me draw I'm going to use this EP tool, and I'm just going to kind of draw a curve shape around this wing. Go back to my perspective view. And let's move this out. Let's actually, yeah, something like that. And I want this controller to control this part of the wing. Now, when I do this, because the pivot of this has been set here to the origin, I just kind of moved it over. When I first draw those curves, the pivot stays at the origin. Let's go ahead and move that pivot. I'm going to hit D, and let's just snap it right to the middle of that joint. And I'm kind of there. And this is a little bit tricky what I'm trying to do. Let me move it this way. Let's see if I can. I'm snapping to grid. That's why. Let's snap to point. Let's snap right to the center of that joint, right? That looks right in the middle of it. Let's hit D again. And now this controller will pivot around that joint, which it's going to be controlling. Let's go ahead, select this, and let's say freeze transformations. Perfect. That way we always know that this is where the center is. I might just select this and duplicate it. Let's move this to, let's just move this directly. Let's snap it to that joint. I still have snapped joint on here. I might have to kind of move it up and out. Let's scale it up a bit. Scale it up, and then let's move that pivot again. So this kind of indicates, okay, that I'm going to be, might actually want to move this over. Let's restrict our ability to select geometry at this point. So I'm just going to hit R for the geometry because I don't want to be able to select it. So let's go ahead, I want to select this curve. I'm going to move it over a bit. So I know it's kind of, this curve is going to be affecting the center. Let me edit this curve a little bit. I'm going to edit the edit points. It's going to, let me turn off snap to point for a moment and just kind of give this curve a little bit of a different shape by selecting these edit points. Maybe I'll select the control vertices instead. This gives me a little bit more flexibility. I'm just going to kind of reshape this controller. Okay, so I know that this is going to kind of affect the outer part of the wing. Let me go in and start to name these two. So this is going to be left wing, or let's say this is the left shoulder control. And then this is the left wing control. Okay, and let's make sure that pivot again. Let's hit D, let's snap to point, and let's just drag that. Let's snap to point turned on, and let's try to snap it right to that joint. And with the geometry, let's see if this actually works. No, we'll still kind of snap it to the geometry as well. But we'll snap it right to that joint, which is really good, really nice. Okay. Let's make sure that that's been maintained. Good. And then again, select that wing, and then let's freeze the transformations on that. Now let's do a control for the tail. Maybe we'll take this neck joint and let's duplicate that control. It's not going to duplicate the constraint, just the controller. And again, it doesn't, I want to know that this is going to control like the tail. And again, I think a problem with this model is that I really did need, this is going to become a problem. I really did need some joints. I don't think now if I go back in and I insert a joint here, that Yeah, I don't think that's going to really work for me. So I would have to redo the skinning and everything, and that might not be a bad idea to do it, but in the interest of this tutorial, I'm going to leave it. But let's see. But I do think I wanted to have some more control over the tail and more control over these legs by having a joint at the base of the legs and then maybe one more here at the tail. Okay, so let's go ahead. Here's my control, neck control 1. I want to rename this tail control. Let's make it bigger. And then let's modify this pivot and let's snap it to this joint here. And then I'm going to maybe, let's edit these control vertices a bit. Maybe I'll see if I can do Object X. Will that select? No, it won't. I'll just select these two and scale them in. Okay. So I know that that's the tail. Just giving it a bit of a different shape. Okay. And with let's freeze the transformations here. And let's constraint it here. Parent constraint. Tail to the tail. And then let's just do some small, let's go and do this left knee. Snap it to that knee there. And maybe I'll just also modify, just going to shift, and I don't want to, let's actually turn off the joints for a second, just so I'm only able to select these control vertice points. Okay, the Object X is working here where it's selecting across this object. Let's just scale these in so we have a kind of diamond shape. I'm going to turn this off. Or actually, let's turn that back on and let's translate them instead. Maybe not. Okay, that's fine with me. I'm just going to leave that. That's going to be my knee. So I'm going to go down here and say left knee control. And then let's do a parent constraint to that left knee. Okay. I can also maybe do one for the foot, but we'll leave it. So those are my control rig. That's my control rig so far. What I'd like to do is for the shoulder and the wing, let's make that wing a child of that shoulder. So I'm just going to middle mouse and drag it under that shoulder. That way, however I rotate that shoulder joint, that wing will kind of move with it. And I don't think that shoulder has been constrained here. Let's make sure that that has a constraint. Do a parent constraint there. And also then for the wing mid, let's do a parent constraint there. Okay, so now when I rotate this wing, the control rig goes with it, which is nice. I want this controller to maintain its position to the entire model, entire rig. Okay, now I should just be able to zero these out and zero this out. And that's why I freeze the transformation. So I always can bring it back to this kind of T pose.